Hey there. All right, so we're going to talk for just a few minutes. I'm going to demonstrate how we go about creating some of the things that we talked about in class. First off, one of the things that we need to be able to do is get descriptive statistics. So what we're going to do is select those columns that we want. I guess we don't need to do that yet, but let's go to Data, Data Analysis, and we're going to get our descriptive statistics. We will select the columns that we want right there, and we're going to have the labels in the first row, and we're going to get the summary statistics. We're also going to get confidence interval, confidence level as well for the mean, just to have. And you can see here that we have, for each of the quantitative variables, we have some statistics. All right, we've got our mean, our median, our mode, standard deviation. We have our variance, skewness, range, min, max, all of those things, and the count. So all of those are fairly useful for what we need to do for the first part of the assignment. Another part is creating frequency tables. So the easiest way to do that is to go to Insert. We're going to go to, let's select our data that we want. Let's make a frequency table for age. We're going to go to Histogram. It's this darker blue one right here. And we'll select this. And that gives our histogram. It's already specified what we're going to put in the different bins. If we want to change that, which we can specify number of bins. We can change it, say to 10. That changes it up a little bit. We can, again, it's format access, and then our access we can see by format by category. That doesn't make sense. Automatic makes sense. Bin width, we can that's only just changing the size. And if you change it higher or lower, it changes the number of bins. Or easiest is just to specify the number of bins. And 5 look like a pretty good mark. So on the number side, we don't really need to add any sort of formatting here. It'd be nice if we had whole numbers, but we're not going to worry about that for right now. So if we wanted to have whole numbers, we could change this to number and then do 0 in the decimal place, and then that would be our round numbers. Okay, so again, format access, and then you'll see number of bins. If you want to adjust so it's whole numbers, go to number and then change the category to number, and then just take the decimal points down to a 0. For those of you that have Mac, you may have to go to format, click on the actual table itself, and then format data series. And in there, in the data series, you'll see an option for adjusting the number of bins. So that's how we do all of our frequency tables for quantitative data. Now, if we're going to do a histogram for major, let's see if we can do that. See if it lets us do that. Histogram. No. So that one is a little bit trickier. We're going to have to work on that one a bit and how we kind of do that. We don't necessarily need to do a frequency table, a histogram for that one, but we do need to do some frequency tables. So did the histogram. One thing that you can do is to make life easier. To get the frequency table for quantitative data for any of these, there's 2 real ways of going about it. Or there's 3. The first is to take the data, sort the data. Let's continue to work on age here. Smallest to lowest, and then we can kind of see what our max is. Our min is 18, and our max is 44. So there's our difference. So we know our difference is 26, and if we want to do this, we could say divide by, let's just divide by 5. So we'd have 5 categories. So we could do say 18 or 17 to 22, 18 or sorry 23 to 28, 29, and so on and so forth. Okay, to what, 34. And then we just keep kind of going up from there. And then what we would do is our category, our one bin frequency table for age is 17 to 22. We would just highlight the number that fall in there. We would go down here. You can kind of see, sorry, I cut the screen off a little bit. Let me see if I move it down. You can see that the count was 31. So there's 31 here. Okay, so we know that there are 31 observations of age of people falling within 17 to 22. We also know that there are 100 observations. So we can just go equals this divided by 100. That's 0.3. We can either times it by 100, or we can hit this percentage button right here and it changes it to 31. So for the next category, we have 23 to 28. That is 20. For 29 to 34, we have 23. And you'll notice that I'm making sure that these are odd. You always want to have an odd start, or ideally an odd start or an odd end. You don't want to have it go back and forth. So you want to have your split be an odd number, so that way it always starts with an odd and ends with an even. If you do an even number split or class, so to say 18 to 22, then it would be 23 to 27 and then 28. It doesn't look right. I would not recommend doing that. I need to make that an even number. Okay, so then we have 35 to 40. And that is 17. And then we have our last one, 44, 41 to 46, and there are 9. So we've done this, and now we can just drag this down, and we see a division by age, our frequency table for age. Now, frequency table for the qualitative ones are a little bit different. Same concept, though. Let's go ahead and sort. Custom sort. We're going to sort by, what is that, grade? A to Z. And so we can say freshman, makeup, how many? 29. And then we can go on from there and continue to do a breakout for all of those. Another way to do it is to use formulas. So for a formula, I described this in class. Let me go ahead and write it out, and then I'll walk you through it. Okay, so using formulas, I've got my same chart that I had up here, and I use the formula count if is, which allows us to basically say count a number in a range if it falls between two different values. So here I'm saying count if in E, which is in the E column, which is our age, if it is greater or equal to 17, but not if it's in that same range and less than or equal to 22. Okay, and that gives me, same as up here, 31. So if we just count this again, we'd have to count if is, our criteria range 1 is E to E, and our criteria for this one is equal to 23, greater than or equal to 23, and then our second range, and our second criteria is less than or equal to 28. And then we close that off, and we have 20. So that's a way that you can do it as well. If you're going to count in the grade column, if you wanted to do that one, we could say freshman. We could say count if, because we're not looking for between, we're just looking to count these things. We're counting in the, say, C column, C to C, and we're looking for freshman. 29. So that's a way that you can do it as well. So that's one way, simply counting, using formulas. The other way is to use the histograms to guide you in how you would do this. So go ahead and insert a histogram here for age. We have our histogram. It's already kind of said what we want. Let's go ahead and let's format this so it looks nicer. The number 0, and then let's add something here. We're going to go to add chart element, add data labels, add center. So you can see that with this different grouping, 18 to 24, 24 to 30, 30 to 36, which again, because it is doing it automatically, there's a little bit of overlap there. We can see that the numbers are slightly different than what we have here. There's 32 because it goes up to 24. There's 23 because it goes up to 30, and so forth. So if you just wanted to do that, you could just say 18 to 24 is 32. And 24 to 30 is 23. Not great because of there's round numbers. We could say add, we don't want to add overflow. That's not going to help us either. But that's pretty much, if you wanted to do it that way, that's also an option. A third and a fourth way of doing it is you can use pivot tables, which is insert pivot table. And we could say, and this doesn't work as well with the quantitative things because it doesn't allow you to specify different categories, right? But for the quantitative ones, for the qualitative ones, it's much easier. So we just put the student status in there, and then we'll put in, say, just grade over here, and it's just going to give you a count. And so if we wanted to have a major breakout by student status, we can just add that here. And this is a frequency table. Okay, it's showing us the number of observations by both graduate and undergraduate, and then the majors within those. Okay, so that's one way to do it. So if you're going to copy this over, you could do two things. You can use fields here to do a calculated field to show a percentage. I don't like doing this. This is a little bit of a hassle. What I generally just do is copy and paste it into over here, like so. Maybe add some additional formatting to make it look better, like so. And then you do your percentages. Now, if you're going to do a two-tiered system like this where you have graduate and then undergraduate, let's add additional space here. Make it look a little nicer. If you're going to do this, it's fine, but then you have to ask the question of what frequency percentage do you want to display? Are you trying to display the frequency overall or the frequency within these groups? And so I want to do percentage by status. So either graduate or undergraduate. So for each of these, instead of going 4 divided by 100, it would be 4 divided by 24. And this would show us the percentage within the status of status for the students. Remember, if you are moving it down, you just want to add in that little $sign so it doesn't move. Pull it down, and now we have a frequency table for this. again, this is this divided by this. Add in the dollar sign so it doesn't move. And we'll bring it down and add some dollar. So there is our frequency, two-tiered frequency table. If you wanted to do the overall number, you could do percentage overall, and that would be simply just this divided by the 100 observations, which gives us 0.4, which, again, this isn't going to be interesting because there's 100, but if it was a different number, that would be a bit more interesting. So we could say that if we're going to interpret this, we would say that IA majors of this sample set make up 28% of the undergrad within the sample set, or 21% of the overall sample, while math graduate students make up 33% of all graduate students, but only 8% of the total sample size, which is 100. So the last question I'm getting a lot of is on the IQR, which we're looking at the interquartile range, which is functionally the top, the third quartile divided by the first quartile. And here we're looking to use ordinal data. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this. We don't need any of this. We'll just delete it all. So which of these would be ordinal data? Well, again, this is for you to think about in the lab, but again, ordinal data can be qualitative or quantitative, or qualitative that's put into quantitative form that is ordered, and there is some reference to one number being in relation to another, right? So if we're thinking about a survey, we know that in a survey of 1 to 5, with 5 being the happiest and 1 being the most unhappy, that, where a 4 would be different than a 2. So we kind of understand that if we're looking at how these things are ranked, we can see that there might be 2. Maybe grade could be 1, but again, grade is a qualitative variable, so we'd have to change it to a quantitative, and then go from there. How would we do that? Well, we could just apply we can apply a number to it. So freshmen are in first grade, or they're the first. And then sophomores are second, juniors are third, seniors are fourth, and graduate students are 5th grade, or 5th through 15th grade. So now we have ordinal data for this. Again, the grade levels are in order, right? You don't come into school as a senior, then move to a freshman, then jump to a graduate student, then a junior. There is a specific order. Same might be said with readership, right? Again, it's an observational data point that maybe you won't think about. It's more discrete, but we can think that reading one day is the number of days that you read is distinct in terms of you can read 0 or 7. So there is a ranked ordering to how much you read. So maybe 0 is the lowest and 7 is the most, and each day is incrementally better. So say grade quant. So how do we get this particular, how do we get the range for this? So our IQR is the third quartile minus the second quartile. So let's go ahead and just graph this. We can select this column. We can insert a histogram, a box and whiskers, and we can see how the data is distributed. We can see that for the most part, again, there's no 0, so the first quartile would likely be here. We're using this line. The median is at around 3, or just below 3, and our third quartile is 4th. Okay, visually we can see this, but let's do this mathematically. We can ask Excel to give us the quartile. There's a function in here called quartile, and it's called, you select the array, which would be this column, and you would select what quartile you want, first, median value, or the third. So we want the third, right? We'll start with the third. And that's our third quartile is 4. We do the same to get our first quartile. And we select our range. And we select our first quartile, which would be 1. And to get the IQR, we would simply just subtract this from this, and it's 3, which aligns here. What about this one? This one might be a little bit trickier. Let's check this one out. Let's insert a graph just to take a look. All right, so much different distribution of data. We can see that the mean is right around here. Actually, let's pull up our description data. Newspaper readership, our median number was 4. Okay, and yep, there's our 4 right there. Well, our mean was 3.72. That's about right there. So the X is marking our mean. But let's go ahead and get the IQR. So we go, again, quartile. Select this range. Third. If you wanted to build it all into one, which we could just do, we could get fancy. Minus J minus 1. Oh, I did. Oh no. That's in the wrong spot. Okay. There we go. So we can see our interquartile range, our IQR was 3 for this. Okay, so which it was, if we interpret it, the first quartile, sorry, so it's the third quartile up here, minus a 5, minus our second quartile, which is 2, which would be 3. So there's our IQR for that particular set. So I think that is all I'll post for right now. This is a longer video, so hopefully it's helpful with the grade or with the lab. Let me know if you have any questions, and I can post some more videos. All right, thanks.